Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sabbath services here at Tomorrow's Church of God. For our first song today, if everybody would please turn to page number 74 and stand. This was supposed to have music, so you don't have to listen to me, but it's Lower Lights, page number 74. Of our first mercy, from his lighthouse evermore, but to us he gives us keeping of the lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the way. Some poor fainting, struggling seaman, you may rescue, you may save. Dark the night of sin has settled, loud the angry billows roar. Eager eyes are watching, longing for the lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the way. some poor fainting, struggling seaman, you may rescue, you may save. Trim your feeble lamp, my brother, some poor seaman, tempest tossed, trying now to make the harbor in the darkness may be lost. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the way. Some poor fainting, struggling seaman, you may rescue, you may save. I can't hold it that long, can I? For our next song, if everybody would please turn to page number 96. We're going to sing Onward Christian Soldiers, after which we'll get Mr. Johnny Padilla to come do our opening prayer. Page number 96. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the word of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe, forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the word of Jesus going on before. Like a mighty army moves the church of God. Brothers, we are treading where the saints have trod. We are not divided, all one body we, one in hope and doctrine, one in charity. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the word of Jesus going on before. Crowns and thrones may perish, kingdoms rise and wane, but the church of Jesus constant will remain. Gates of hell can never against that church prevail. We have Christ's own promise, which will never fail. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the word of Jesus going on before. Onward then, ye people, join our happy throng, blend with our voices in the triumph song. Glory, love, and honor unto Christ the King. This through countless ages, men and angels sing. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the word of Jesus going on before. Great start. And now for opening prayer today, Mr. Johnny Padilla.
Our Heavenly Merciful Father, we once again come before you on this Sabbath, the holy day, Father, to praise you, to honor you, and also to honor your Son, who done so much for us and continue. And Father, may you, before you, Father, may you see everyone the armor of light that we bestow onto and into our heart and mind and soul, Father, that we on this day coming to gain knowledge from your words, Father, as we read the scripture, and this is what we need, Father, to come closer to you before your throne. And Father, for also those listening over the internet, inspire them and also inspire each one of us here present. And for those not able to be here with us, Father, and comfort them in your special ways for every reason that may be, and also for those that are under infirmity, may you heal them or comfort them in your special touch, Father. And all this we ask, and also be inspired Joe as he leads the Bible study, and as we continue and need to continue and learn your words, Father, and may you bring understanding of your words. In all this we ask in your Son's name, Amen.
Thank you, Johnny. All right, for some announcements this morning, it says, good morning and welcome to tomorrow's Church of God, not yesterday's Church of God, and welcome to all of our online viewers. There's no main message today, but if you're looking for the scriptures, it's going to be pretty easy. We're going to try to do Numbers 34, 35, and 36 and wrap up the book of Numbers this week. If you're watching us, or no matter how you're watching us, we actually have several different ways to watch in case one's not working, like mine wasn't last week. We have Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, and Roku. If you are looking for us on Roku, we are under The Sabbath Channel. And however you're watching, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. Also share it with your friends. That'll help get the word out, help increase our online presence. If you'd like one of our 2025 calendars or booklets, we actually got them in this week. Woo! So now January can start. We're ready to go for January. Simply send your address and an email to tomorrowtcog@gmail.com, and we will get one of these brand new spiffy calendars sent out to you. You can also download a copy of that 2024 calendar if you just don't want to wait for that mail to come in. Simply go to our website, which is thetcog.com. Select literature, then calendars. Now my disclaimer that I gave all last year, the dates in this calendar are subject to change based on the new moon physical observation. But so far we're good. We were just talking about it a while ago. It looks like there's not going to be any new moon at all in February. And now that I got the calendar, I can see there was two, or there will be two in January. So something handy to keep around just so you can keep up with everything. Again, for our Bible study today, we're going to be covering Numbers 34, 35, and 36, hopefully, if my voice will go, make it last. If you'd like to ask a question or comment on our Bible study, we always appreciate the interaction. Simply go online, which is thetcog.com again. Click on TCOG Streaming, and you can ask your questions in the comment section. Ron's already manning it right now to see if any comments or questions come in. Now on your screen, you should see the prayer list for this week. If you would please keep everybody on this list in your thoughts and prayers. Coming up, there it is. Also, if you would keep Robert in your prayers, just got a text from him that his water pipes froze last night. So he's having to man that and see if there's any kind of issue. So keep a prayer out for him also. I know that he and everybody else on this list, along with their family members, would greatly appreciate it. All right, so I think that's all of our announcements for today. And now we get the Marathon Bible Study. Luckily, all three of these chapters are fairly short, so we should be able to zoom right through them. Again, if you've got comments or questions online, it doesn't have to be a question. You can make a comment. Please submit it, and we will try to address it as quickly as possible. And please forgive me as I go through this. I've had a respiratory issue for the last couple of weeks, and so I'm trying to get by without coughing as much as normal, but we'll see how that goes. All right, so I like to read out of the Names of God Bible as we go through the Old Testament here. So I'll start in verse 1 of chapter 34, if everybody's ready. All right. Yahweh said to Moses, give the Israelites these instructions. When you enter Canaan, the land that will be given to you as your inheritance has these borders. The southern side includes part of the desert of Zin along the border of Edom. In the east, the southern border starts from the end of the Dead Sea, turns south of the Arakbim Pass. It goes past Zin and ends at Kadesh Barnea. From there, it goes to Hazar Adar and on to Asman. From Asman, it turns towards the river of Egypt so that the border ends at the Mediterranean Sea. And I tell you what, if you'll pause with me 1 second, I actually have some pictures and I forgot to give them to Ron, so give me 1 second. There's only 2 this week, Ron. There's only 2, so yeah. All right. So I went to all that trouble, made these pictures, and I didn't even give it to Ron. So, all right. So we're in verse 6. It says, the western border is the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea. The northern border extends from the Mediterranean Sea to Mount Hor, and from Mount Hor to the border of Hamath, so that it ends at Zedad. From there, the border goes to Ziphron and ends at Hazar Anan. The eastern border extends from Hazar Anan to Shephem. From Shephem, the border goes down to Riblah, east of Ain, and continues along the eastern slope of the Sea of Galilee. The border goes along the Jordan River so that it ends at the Dead Sea. This will be your land and the borders around it. Moses commanded the Israelites, this is the land you will divide by drawing lots. Yahweh has commanded that this land will be given to the 9.5 tribes, the households from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh have already received their land. Those 2.5 tribes received their land east of the Jordan, across from Jericho. Verse 16, Yahweh said to Moses, these are the names of the men who will divide the land for you, the priest Eleazar and Joshua son of Nun. You must also take 1 leader from each tribe to divide the land. These are their names. Caleb, son of Jephunneh, now that messed that one up, from the tribe of Judah. Shemuel from Amuhad, from the tribe of Simeon. Elidad, son of Kislon, from the tribe of Benjamin. Buki, son of Jogli, the leader of the tribe of Dan. Haniel, son of Ephod, the leader of the tribe of Manasseh. Kemuel, son of Shiptan, the leader of the tribe of Ephraim. Manasseh and Ephraim are Joseph's descendants. Elizaphan, son of Parnach, the leader of the tribe of Zebulun. Paltiel, son of Zan, the leader of the tribe of Issachar. Ahihud, son of Shelomi, the leader of the tribe of Asher. Pedahel, son of Emuhad, the leader of the tribe of Naphtali. These are the men Yahweh commanded to divide Canaan for the Israelites. All right, and there is chapter 34. What kind of comments, questions we got? Yes, ma'am.
So we talked about, I think it's 13 for divide the land.
Verse 13. Okay, yes, where it divides the land, so they're going to divide by lots.
Yeah, drawing by lots. I mean, how did we're going to go about drawing by lots?
From my understanding, it's like a lottery system on there. So they have these different parcels, different areas that they're going to choose. Maybe they just numbered it 1 through 9.5, right? And then, so they had these numbers in, and then they would go in, and each leader would pull their number, or either they're the leader or Eleazar or Joshua. They would do it in front of everybody, in front of the leaders, and then the Eleazar and Joshua, and pick the lots. Now, they would do it by the size, so depending on how much territory you would get, depending on the population of that tribe itself. So that's how they were picking their areas there. Kind of a random process on that. Does that answer your question? Okay. What other comments, questions you got? I see you going, Johnny. Go ahead.
Wasn't a lot, using the Thuman and the urine?
Yeah, off of the rocks that the high priest kept.
Yeah, behind the house.
Yeah. So I had not heard that, excuse me, or done any research that showed that. Did you find some research on there that showed that?
Not really, mainly that, of course, these 12 individuals, they're going to divide the land, but isn't the God, is the one that divided the land for these Israelites? Instead of, they pretty much got to come before God to see what land you take, the tribe takes.
So how do you mean?
I mean, okay, there's 12 tribes.
Uh-huh.
All right, and
Gad, Reuben, and half of Manasseh took their own already.
yes, already, you're down to 9.5.
Yeah.
So now in God's promised land, He's the one going to be dividing these tribes into these 7 nations of Canaan.
So in all of my research, nobody ever really got into the exact process on there. And it doesn't really explain it too much. The casting of lots is the same thing that they did in the New Testament when they were casting lots for Messiah's clothes, right? They were all trying to just randomly draw numbers for it, basically, on there. And so from my understanding, that's the way it was done. Now, the Urim and Thummim, that was a yes or no answer whenever the high priest would go to the temple or ask God a question. He would get his answers through the Urim and Thummim, or Urim and Thummim. I think that's what it is.
Well, they didn't
Yeah.
get the truth, but they get yay or nay.
Yeah, a yes or no. Yeah,
But you don't get the truth, from using it.
right.
But nevertheless, Joshua, it was mentioned somewhere, I can't remember exactly what book or what verse or what chapter, he picked his land and
Well, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
yeah, but like I say, I can't exactly remember, but I read it.
Well, he might have been able to pick his land, but from his tribe. Yeah, so they were all granted these different areas, right? And from my understanding, it was done by lots. Now, could Eleazar and Joshua, could they have used the Urim? I don't know, right? Where they said, "Hey, I want one," and they look at it and says, "Nope," or "Yes." I don't know, right? So it doesn't really go into the specifics on how they did the casting of lots. My impression of it, as I went through and from the research that I did, that it was more of a random process for them to get allotted their territories, and then the size of the territory would depend on the number of people in the tribe.
It's just that, okay, there's rivers, in
Uh-huh.
certain areas. I would like to have land like this.
Yeah, I want a nice little hillside on a creek with fresh running water. Yeah, with lots of bass in it. That's what I want. I don't know if they had that lot going, but that's what I'd like to cast mine for if I could.
Okay, who would get that, that lot? So,
It probably there. Excuse me. I'm sure there was a hierarchy within each family. So, it's like, okay, Texas got this property, and then there was a hierarchy of where you would get to be, where you're going to be in Austin or Houston or Beaumont or Holland, Texas, or where would you be, may have depended on your status in the family on there, right? I don't know exactly how that worked out. I just know that, and even with the lots, right, God was in ultimate control of making sure that where he wanted them to go got done. And so maybe that was just the easiest way for them to divide it up without bickering, because, I would have wanted the hillside with the little creek and everything else. And so without bickering, they would do the casting of lots, and then God's ultimately one that would have it decided for them. Yeah. You comfortable with that? Okay, good. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, it seems like by doing it by lot, it's a more fair thing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can't get the best lots, the best places.
Yeah, the one family like I'm gonna say Judah, right? So Judah can't say, well, we're the biggest tribe, so we want this primo section that has all the rivers and everything else. Casting by lots, to your point, God's still in control. God's still in control, but it's more of a appears to be more of a random process where God is the one who decides it.
I guess the tribe had pretty much got to sell themselves, what can he provide to the community?
Right. Well, and that's exactly what Reuben and Gad and Manasseh did. They're like, hey, we're herders. This is a great land for herders. This is what we will do is we'll take care and we're going to prosper and be a great source of meat, basically, for everybody.
A lot of that taken into consideration,
You're right, exactly.
provide to the community.
And Ron, were you able to get those up there? Would you put the first one? I'll tell you which one is the first one. That's not the first one. That's it, right? So I was trying to find and be as accurate as possible. This is the one that came up the most as far as the territories there. And you can kind of see with the outline. So one of those is from Numbers 34 here, and the other one is from Ezekiel, where it also lists out the borders. And so there's a slight variation in the two books as to where one was versus the other, right? So you can actually see where present-day Israel is, and Israel goes further south than their southern border is supposed to go. They go all the way to the Gulf of Aqaba currently on there. But yeah, their western border was mainly the Mediterranean Sea, as you can see. But they didn't go into any of Edom's or anybody else's land on there besides the ones that they conquered. And then the next one, Ron, if you can pull it, let's see, make sure it's the one I was thinking of. Is that? I think I just put that one there so you can see where present day, the present nations are for present day on here. And so Libya and Syria at the top is in part of what their land was supposed to be. And now you have Ammon, which is taken over where Reuben and Gad were. So just got to give you a comparison on there. And somewhere, I know I've showed it before, the actual breakup, and I apologize I didn't put it on there today. Unless, Ron, do you see that anywhere in my list? Where it shows the different tribes and where they actually ended up. That's okay. We've seen it before. Say it again. That's not really but that was where Edom and Moab and the Amorites were. This one shows where Reuben and Simeon and Issachar, Manasseh, and everybody else were. But I didn't pinpoint that one out, so imagine it. Well, I think I actually do have a printout somewhere that I can show after services. What other comments do we have here?
Yeah. I kind of think, there's a video online showing the Israel, the Promised Land, and in a 3D map.
Oh, really?
It's very, very impressive.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I have to take a look at that.
Yeah, but anyway, some of the things that came across, like the Dead Sea elevation, approximately 1,412 feet below sea level.
Below sea level, yeah. That's a long way, 1,000 feet below sea level.
It's the deepest
Is that the lowest level on Earth?
level on Earth.
Yeah.
And then there's the Sea of Galilee, which is approximately 686 feet back then.
Above?
Below.
Below sea level, okay.
Below sea level. And today is approximately 700 feet.
Oh, so it's rising.
Yeah, it's rising there. And I think that back at Dead Sea elevation was, back at the time, most of the time was 1,358. And then today is 1,400.
So it's dropping.
Yeah, it's dropping.
So you've got the Dead Sea dropping and the Sea of Galilee rising. between today and back then. That's crazy. So it's getting lower and lower.
Yes, and if you see it in a 3D, I mean, it's very impressive. You know?
Yeah. Is it like a topographical?
Yeah, and it's topographical, plus, you know, it's in the 3D.
It's in 3D. Yeah, so you can kind of move it around.
Move it around. Well, they have a video, and it goes from, you know, all around different areas, you know. Of course, they mentioned about, you know, the Dead Sea, you know, when I came across what caused the Dead Sea to, you know, salt. Let's see.
It has nowhere to drain, so it just evaporates, and as it evaporates over time, the mineral content has just gotten higher and higher and higher and higher.
Well, what I come to find out, and before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, there was fresh water there. But, you know, afterwards, when Sodom and Gomorrah got destroyed by God, it became salt in that area.
Okay.
So, and also to mention, possibly when Messiah returns, we're going to turn this into fresh water again. So, I mean, that's the game plan.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
So, yeah.
You keep going. Yeah, you're still up.
Another thing that came across, okay, the seven nations of Canaan, you know, which is the promised land, plus, you know, half of Manasseh and Reuben
And Gad.
you know, kind of added to it. But the problem is that promised land is over there. across the-
They're on the wrong side of the Jordan. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But that's only a small portion of the promised land. When you read Ezekiel chapter 48, in if you can show
Yeah. Would you put that first map up again, Ron?
the one that shows Saudi Arabia completely.
Oh, you want the whole Saudi Arabia? I'm sorry. Put the second one up, please.
Yeah, you have a larger.
I don't have larger yet. I was trying to get as big as I could without kind of getting rid of the view of Israel there. But Saudi Arabia is the lower right hand side.
Yeah, lower right hand side, but it's way further south from there.
Yeah.
But anyway, in Ezekiel, if you read Ezekiel 48, it's showing that from the Mediterranean to the river Euphrates, am I pronouncing that correctly? I don't know. And from there all the way down, they say Great River, meaning
The
ocean.
well, so there's been some debate on that, right? And so I did go through that in my research on there. So, because they're like, oh, the Great River, and then some people were saying that no, it's not that. I mean, it's not going into Egypt or anything, but there's a great river just to the south of Gaza there, which is where they've got. If you put up the first one more time, Ron, sorry, I'm gonna keep you busy. Right there, where both see on the bottom left, where you see the red and the blue line, that was, yeah. That's where they were saying that the Great River that they're talking about here. And I think, can you read it? I think the blue is Ezekiel 47, and the red is Numbers 34 line.
But if you read that chapter
Uh-huh.
again, in Ezekiel 48, and then it's going to say the great river, which is the Mediterranean on the west side,
Okay.
and to the river of Euphrates.
Okay. Well, we can definitely take a look at that for sure. I didn't print it out. I apologize. But you said Ezekiel 48. I'll tell you what. Let me pull up my handy dandy Bible app and see if I can take a look at it real quick. Johnny's always trying to stop me. Yeah.
So, I mean, when Messiah returns, he's going to need a lot more land than was there
I think you'll have all the earth.
I mean, his kingdom.
Right. Well, you talk about the temple that's going to be 1,500 miles by 1,500 miles by 1,500 miles.
No, that's not, that's
Oh, okay, is that what you're talking about, Johnny? The third temple? Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood there. I'm looking. Now, was it talking about specifically Reuben? Because it says from the east side to the west side, one section for Reuben, by the border of Reuben from the east side.
Well, I didn't write down the verses.
Oh, you got me. It's in there somewhere, right?
It's just a matter of reading it.
Uh-huh.
And, let's see if I have it on my other Bible and I don't marked up, but, let's see.
We can we can do that. Would be a great topic for us to kind of discuss as we go as we do our lunch on there, because I do want to try to get through all three chapters, which they're all three are fairly short. And I forgot to say, these three chapters are basically kind of just the wrap up right before they're going to go into the promised land across the culmination. Thank you, the culmination of it. And so it's talking about now. Hey, here's where your borders are going to be. Here's the leaders of the different tribes. You're going to follow Eleazar and Joshua, and then all these different leaders. And so it's just really prepping them for once they cross the Jordan and go into the promised land there on it. And again, I would love to, as we go through it, we'll definitely have a look. And if you're online and you've got that memorized, then you'd be happy to send it in for us and we can kind of go over it. But is there anything else on 34 in the meantime? Yeah, bring it.
Where it says, verse 8, Mount Hor.
Yep.
Hor, that is indicating that that's up north, actually down south.
Hey, Johnny, put the microphone in front of you.
Oh, the microphone. They're asking if you could put the microphone a little closer. Excuse me.
Yes, there on verse 8.
Mount Hor. There's another. I'm assuming there's another Mount Hor on there. Because as we were going through when they were wandering around, they were at Mount Hor and they never made it up to the northern side of the territory on there.
Goes down further south.
Yeah.
By Esau, Edom.
Edom, south of the desert, I think.
Yeah, kind of like.
The Zin Desert.
West, east of, what's it called, Barnea, Kadesh.
Oh yeah. And that's mentioned in here too.
Yeah, where Aaron died.
Okay. Yeah, because in verse 4 it says, and it ends at the Kadesh Barnea on there, just past Zin. So we'll have to look at that, and I can't zoom in on my map, and I didn't print it out to see if it pointed out Mount Hor in the northern section too on there.
Yes, and I guess you can read Numbers 20, chapter 20, verse 23 to 29.
For Mount Hor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because I know there was a Mount Hor in the south on there, but I know we did some research on it of what the Hor means, the meaning of it, and I can't remember right offhand. But if it was like tall hill or something, right? I mean, they could have that same name in another location.
Yeah, like you say, what should have been there, they mentioned Mount Hermon, Hermon, and that's in North Lebanon Mountains.
Okay, Mount Hermon. Hermon.
But yes, I mean, like for let's say for the Dead Sea, they use different names. Lake Asphaltes, and
Say that twice.
yeah, exactly, or Sea of the Arabia. They have different names.
Right, depending on who's writing.
Depending who's writing, or for the Sea of Galilee, they use the Sea of Kinnereth or Shinnereth, because what it is, the sea looks like a heart shape. That's why they named it.
Okay. Yes, sir. Let me get Ron real quick.
Another thing you need to keep in mind whenever you're reading the last section of Ezekiel
Okay. Did you hear what Ron said?
So things could be different. They could, you know, names, different sections or areas or whatever
Right.
could change.
Yeah, and people are very, very good at naming new places, something that they're familiar with already. We can see that as when they came to America. Everything is George. You got Georgia. It was all after King George. All of the locations that we've got. There's Paris, Texas. You know, so we're very good at renaming places what we are already familiar with. Good deal.
In some of those places, they bring in their kosher, you know, into their, like Fredericksburg, a lot of, you know, there's some Germans.
Yes.
Well, I would call maybe a tribe.
Well, and that was the thing is they would move in and you would you would move in kind of with families. Brothers would typically go and settle a place and then bring in more their family from overseas or from distant lands and come in. So yeah, no, absolutely. We do it as early as or as late as the America's still doing the same naming techniques and the same kind of tribal formations that we set up when we go to new places and bring our family with us. All right. Anything else on 34 before I move to 35? You have anything? Yeah. All right. So we'll go to 35 and go through it real quick. And this one's a little bit longer, but not too long. And then 36 is really, really short. Again, I'm reading out of the Names of God Bible. This is Numbers 35, and my subtitle says Cities for the Levites, which is pretty interesting. Everybody ready? All right. In verse 1, it says, Yahweh spoke to Moses on the plains of Moab near the Jordan River across from Jericho. He said, tell the Israelites to give the Levites some cities from their own property. They must also give the Levites a pasture land around those cities. Then the Levites will have cities to live in and pasture land for their cattle, the flocks they own, and and any other animals they have. The land around the cities that you give the Levites will extend 1,500 feet from the city wall, outside the city measure off 3,000 feet on the east side, 3,000 feet on the south side, 3,000 feet on the west side, and 3,000 feet on the north side, with the city in the center. This will be their pasture land around the city. 6 of the cities you give the Levites will be the cities of refuge. You must allow murderers to escape to these cities. In addition, you must also give the Levites 42 other cities. So you will give a total of 48 cities with pasture land to the Levites. The cities you give the Levites from the property of the other Israelites must be given based on the amount of land each tribe owns. Take more cities from the larger tribes and fewer from the smaller tribes. Verse 9, city of refuge, says, Yahweh said to Moses, tell the Israelites, when you cross the Jordan River and enter Canaan, select certain cities to be places of refuge. Anyone who unintentionally kills another person may run to them. These cities will be places of refuge for any relative who can avenge the death. So anyone accused of murder will not have to die until he has had a trial in front of the community. There will be 6 cities you select as places of refuge, 3 on the east side of the Jordan River and 3 in Canaan. These 6 cities will be places of refuge for Israelites, foreigners, and strangers among you. Anyone who unintentionally kills another person may flee to these cities, but if any of you uses an iron weapon to kill another person, you are a murderer. Murderers must be put to death. If any of you pick a stone as a weapon and use it to kill another person, you are a murderer. Murderers must be put to death. Or if any of you picks a piece of wood as a weapon and uses it to kill another person, you are a murderer. Murderers must be put to death. The relative who can avenge the death must make sure the murderer is put to death. When he catches up with the murderer, he must kill him. If any of you kill someone you hate by shoving him or by deliberately throwing something at him, or if you beat your enemy to death with your bare hands, you must be put to death. You are a murderer. The relative who can avenge your death must kill you when he catches up to you because you are a murderer. But suppose you accidentally killed someone who wasn't your enemy. Maybe you shoved him or threw something at him and he didn't mean to kill him. Or suppose you drop a big stone or someone is killed, and someone is killed. However, you didn't know the person was there. He wasn't your enemy and you weren't trying to kill him or weren't trying to harm him. And then the community must use these rules in order to decide if you are innocent or if the dead person's relative can avenge the death. If you are innocent, the community must protect you from that relative. They must take you back to the city of refuge you fled to. You must live there until the death of the high priest, who was anointed with holy oil. But don't go outside the city of refuge you fled to. If the relative who can avenge the death finds you outside the city of refuge and kills you, the relative is not guilty of murder. Accused murderers must stay in their city of refuge until the death of the high priest. Then they may go back to their own property only after his death. These will be the rules for future generations wherever you live. Whoever kills another person will be put to death as a murderer only on the testimony of more than one witness. No one can be put to death on the testimony of only one witness. Never accept a cash payment in exchange for the life of a convicted murderer who has been given the death penalty. Murderers must be put to death. An accused murderer who has fled to a city of refuge must never go back and live on his own land before the death of the high priest. Don't accept a cash payment to allow him to do this. You must not pollute the land where you live. Murder is what pollutes the land. The land where a murder was committed can never make peace with the eternal except through the death of the murderer. Never make the land where you and I live unclean. I, Yahweh, live among the Israelites. All right. Yeah, I saw jaws drop. Yeah, what kind of comments and questions we got? Yes, ma'am. You're always first. You're the quickest one with the hand up there. That's right.
So when the Levites were given those cities, but they were not for them to keep, right? They were just like loan land?
They didn't have any inheritance, so they were, to your point, these were loaned lands that they had, and then they would get a certain portion of area around. And these weren't like downtown Austin walled cities. These are, you're talking 4 or 5 buildings maybe in a walled city. It didn't have to be a huge metropolitan. It would just they would put these walls up to keep their sheep and everything intact, and then also for fire breaks. They used to put these rock walls around. And so with these cities, there's 2 different types, right? So they were supposed to get 48 total, but 6 of those were going to be cities of refuge. And so 3 on the east of the Jordan and 3 in the promised land on there.
So the city of refuge, when people would go there, I mean, they would live until the priest died, right?
Until the high priest died, yep.
I mean, what about their families? Would they live with them here at the river?
They could, or they would probably tend their land. Like they had, because you still had property.
Kind of like he was in prison.
Kind of like he was in prison, yeah. And it could be a day, right, before the high priest died. It could be 50 years, right, that you were there. And that is only, the city of refuge is only for unintentional murders, killing, right? Because there's a distinction in the word, right? Murder has intent to it, and we would call it like manslaughter today. I think if you accidentally killed somebody, you didn't intend to, but an accident happened and you caused life, you would flee to the city of refuge, and then you would have a trial, and they would take you back to for this trial, just to make sure that it was unintentional, right? That it was an intentional murder that you did. Because if it was intentional murder, they would just hand you over to the relative, and he could kill you legally. Yeah, and go ahead, Johnny.
So the intentional murder, we don't know.
Yeah, and God's very straightforward on that. He doesn't like it. It pollutes the land. We saw that with Cain and Abel. The blood cried out. That's what he told Cain. He's like, hey, your brother's blood cries out. So the whole intention of this promised land was to have God live with them in this area, right, in this promised land. And so to have it had to be clean, right? So you still had all these different processes you would go through to have a clean area, which means presentable to God, basically. And he detests murder on there, but he understands accidents happen on there.
Pretty much out of the promised land and into another nation, you're on your own, kind of deal. If the next of kin doesn't grab him before he leaves the promised land, or does he continue?
Well, it could be in the promised land. So there was 3 cities of refuge in the promised land.
No, intentional murder.
Oh, intentional murder? No, you were done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't flee anywhere.
No, I'm saying if he made it out at the border of the promised land and continue on to another nation.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much only.
Yeah, like I say, you went to Edom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Israelite ain't going to follow up to the border, and that's it.
I don't know. That's a
Because he has a responsibility back home, so.
Yeah.
He might take a chance going to another nation and get killed.
but that's also his responsibility to do that. The word is Gaal. It's G-A-apostrophe-A-L, and it means redeemer or avenger, right? And it's people like to throw on avenger on there, but it's really redeemer. So he's redeeming this duty, basically, on there to do it. And what's interesting that I didn't know until we went through this research is that's the same redeemer, the same exact word, the same person, who, let's say you were poor and you were sold into slavery. He was the one that came and rescued you from that, paid your dues and got you out of the slavery. So he wasn't, it's almost like a head of the household kind of deal, right? He's the enforcer, maybe that's a better word. He's the enforcer, but he does fairness on both sides. He can save you, or he can take your life if you killed one of his family members. Very interesting on there.
But I'm going to think, should I follow this guy into...
Yeah, but
Well, I would say, cast, do the human and see what God says about it.
yeah.
Should I follow this guy or not?
Well, yeah, I see where you're going with, right? Because you're going into another nation. They have different laws and whatnot. But this is your responsibility, right?
And he might be swayed into paganism or something,
Right.
Things can happen.
Yep, exactly. But you still have a duty, though. Kind of like the duty of the husband brother. But what if I don't like her? It's still a duty that you've got to do, right?
I guess when if it's a law of retaliation, that is a law, so you got to abide by it.
You got to abide by the law, exactly, because then you're breaking the law by not fulfilling it. Because the only way, and here's the big part on I'm kind of going with to make my case, right? So in verse 33, it says, "You must not pollute the land where you live. Murder is what pollutes the land. The land where a murder was committed can never make peace with the Eternal, except through the death of the murderer." So it's that right there. You couldn't make peace unless let's say you followed him halfway around the world, and you'd still have to kill him just to make peace back in the land that you had. So I think, yeah, you're the they say avenger, but I like redeemer a little bit better on there. Yeah. What other comments, questions we got? No comments, no questions?
And also I read somewhere where the route to the land of refuge or the city of refuge, that route had to be clean from any obstacles to where this individual is, taken up and heading down this route to where he doesn't injure himself or trip or whatever.
So that sounds good, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they pave the roads or not, but that does sound good, right? Make sure he's got a chance to get there,
Yeah, a chance to get there with brushes or whatever,
right? Let me get Ron real quick.
I don't know that do they have to judge him first before he?
No, he would go to the city of refuge and then set up a trial.
But what if the relative met him on the road?
You better run fast.
Well,
Why clear a way for him?
Yeah, why make it easy?
Because what if he's innocent? What if it was,
Then the one who kills him would be guilty.
right. But then you'd have to kill another person, right? So I mean, to Johnny's point, if we just clear that road, make sure it's nice and well maintained, they can get there faster to avoid any kind of, early deaths. Let me get Linda. That get her back to you.
Then wasn't he taken back to the city where it happened?
Yeah,
For the trial?
for the trial.
Because then it says he was taken back.
Then they take him, yeah. And to Lydia's point, site custody, right? So they're taking you from the city refuge in custody. So it's their responsibility, yeah, from jail to the court, and then from court back to jail on there. If you're found innocent, or not innocent, because it murders is or killing is killing, but if it was unintentional on there, that's the big key. Yes, sir.
I'll also find it two things.
One at a time.
Yeah. I also find it interesting it requires two witnesses to
Yeah.
And you could just say one guy saw it and then, claim he's guilty.
Yeah. And I wonder if it almost has to be of two different parties, right? Let's say like you had Hatfields and McCoys, and they go, oh no, Billy Bob over here is going to tell me the same thing that I want to hear, so I'll just say he was a witness too, right? So, but I don't know on that. That's just, in my thinking, if you had a grudge, then your family probably also has a grudge with that person, and then it would be easy to say, oh no, we got two witnesses. But if it was two completely different families on there, then that I don't know if that's what it means or not, or if it's just two people, and they know that they've got to put up with the repercussions of it. Your second thing.
Before I go to my second,
Oh, well, this is 1B.
I need to remind you to repeat the question.
Okay, I apologize. I was told I got to repeat the question. So everybody, tell me your questions again, and we're going to start from the beginning.
The other thing is, what was the intent behind the 4 cities in each region going to the Levites?
What was the intent behind?
Because technically they didn't have an inheritance,
Right.
but God said you give them 4 cities in each tribe's territory.
In each territory. Well, but because they still have to have someplace to live, right? And so they can still own. So only certain members of the Levite family were required for duty. So you still had other people that had to, sweep the streets and eat and everything else. So they still had to have something. This was just, they would not get it inherited, right? So if his son married somebody else or whatever, that they're not getting an inheritance on there. This comes up a lot, or might be more evident in our next chapter when it talks about 36 with an unmarried woman can inherit, right? But then when they marry, I don't want to spoil it, so I'll wait for that. But in the next chapter, we'll kind of get into a little bit more. They were not able to pass along this inheritance. Yeah. Well, I thought it was pretty interesting, just the amount of area that they had for pasture and grazing, right? Because from the way that I read it, and y'all tell me if this is the same with you. So you had a city, then they could go out 1,500 feet, and from 1,500 feet to 3,000, that was the area that they could do. At first, it says, they you just go from city wall, you go out 1,500 feet, like that was their area that they would use. But then in the second part, this is in verses 4 and 5. I'll just read it again. It says, the land around the cities that you give the Levites will extend 1,500 feet from the city wall. Outside the city, measure 3,000 feet on the east side, the south side, the west side, and the north side. So you got 1,500 feet, and then all of a sudden it jumps to 3,000. So I'm thinking the 1,500 feet that they could use is the. Well, no, it says, if I'm reading this correctly, it says in verse 5, outside the city, measure off 3,000 feet on the east, 3,000 on the west. That's 6,000, and up and down, right? So you've got,
Inside the city, that's not including the city inside.
right, so you got the city,
Well, you've done the 1,500 feet,
right,
that's 3,000 feet.
right, but that's not what it's saying. If you look, it says 1,500 feet for the Levites. The land around the cities that you give the Levites will extend 1,500 feet from the city wall, right? So that's the land that they're able to use. Outside the city, measure off 3,000 feet on the east, 3,000 on the west. So you're saying that's measured 3,000 like a cube? Okay, that makes sense. I wasn't reading it like that, so I was thinking 1,500 and now measure another 3,000.
1,500 from the city walls, you have a little bit extra
Yeah.
space for the city itself. But that would give you 3,000 feet on each side.
Right, that gives you 3,000 feet, but I was reading it as a linear instead of a horizontal or whatever. Yes, sir.
Well, that extra 1,500 feet is fly control.
Exactly. That's what was it? The DMZ. No, nobody's able to go in that area. What other comments, questions we got on 35?
Yeah, interesting. Well,
Yes, sir.
mine says 2,000 cubits. Break that down, that'll be 3,000 feet.
Okay. So basically, to Linda's point, they had a 3,000-foot cube around the city. Is that what it sounds like to you?
Mine says 2,000 cubits.
Cubits, which I think that's like a foot and a half. Yeah,
And it would be,
3,000 feet.
I was looking for 3,000.
Ah, yeah, no, a cubit is from the elbow to the fingertips, and I think that's roughly 18 inches, which is a foot and a half. So that's your conversion from the 2,000 cubits to the 3,000 feet. Huh? Yeah, same thing. 6, half a dozen, the same number. What else?
So the cities,
Yes, ma'am.
the Levites have 48 cities, and only 6 were gonna be of a refuge. right?
Correct.
So, people who were in the refuge, what did they do? I mean, the purpose of the refuge was for them to wait for people to come, or what was it?
Well, so you got to remember the Levites was basically your civil service on there, so that's why there's 48 of them spread throughout. To Ron's point, there's that 4 for each tribe, basically. Now, it works mathematically like that, but it does say, bigger areas have more and the smaller areas have less. But they're the civil service, so they're taking care of all the daily duties. I'm sure they had a rotation that they would go to the temple to take care of that. But they didn't have an inheritance, so they were just trying to keep up with everything, right, and make sure that it was all running. This is your police service. This is your court system. This is all of them, and that's why when you would run to one of these cities, because it's more like a urban hub, basically, right? So you'd have your police and jurisdictions and all this, and then they would take you back, again, escorting you like you're a prisoner to the city where this happened, and then you would be put on trial. And if you were found guilty, then they would let the relative kill you, and if not, then they would escort you back to this refuge. And so you had this city of refuge that you stay in, and your 1,500 feet that you could stay in, right? And so that was your fortress of solitude if you were on the lam. But if you got outside of that 1,500 feet, then the relative had the duty and authority to be able to kill you.
Do they have to stay inside the city itself? Because it doesn't say they can go out.
It doesn't say that they can go out, but it does specifically say that they're reserving that for the Levites, and since the Levites are the jurisdictional branch, it's a farm area, it's a pasture area. No, but yeah, so it doesn't explicitly say it, but it does not say it either, right? If he's going to have to do something, right? He's going to have to provide for himself. He's not going to be able to just sit back and watch TV and be fed, right? He's going to have to go out and work, and he'd probably work for the Levites who were in charge of the city. Yes, sir.
It is what it is, I mean, blood for blood, but nevertheless, it was an accident.
Well, and for the accidents, that's why you had the city of refuge.
Yeah, yes, but somebody should let the person go if it was an accident, but blood for blood,
You still have a duty, right? Accident or not. I mean, that's what makes you be more careful, right? And make sure your work area is clear. Exactly. All your equipment is going. Because you were responsible. That's it. Now we've got insurance that takes care of everything for us, but you were responsible, right? If you're, we read it before, if your bull, donkey, or whatever went out and hurt somebody, you had to pay for them until they got better. You had to provide for them, right? And if you were known about it, there was another judgment. I can't remember what it was. If your bull was known to do this, there was another punishment. I can't remember right off the top of my head. Anybody remember? I know it was a while back when we went through. Leviticus was a while back, but if it happened once, then you just kill the bull, and if you were a repeat offender, something more dramatic happened, and I can't remember exactly what. The bull is always getting killed because he's a menace, but I think you might actually be held responsible for it too, and if the person dies, then you would be on this list here. Yes, ma'am.
So you could leave, when the high priest died, you could leave that refuge.
Yep.
How would the adventure know that the high priest died? They wouldn't know that.
Well, how would you know the high priest died? It's a big deal. There's only one high priest in all of the land. So when news travels fast, and so if he dies, I'm sure word spread throughout quickly, right? And now if the relative killed you after the high priest died, then he would committed murder. And now you got to go, then he would be killed. Exactly. No, that's not accidental. Yeah. And so, and he doesn't have to, as long as he catches you outside of the city of refuge, it's not an accident. He's committing murder, but it's a prescribed murder that God put in place to take care of the land and to heal the land, and that's the only way to heal it is through the blood, right? And that's why we would do all these sacrifices, because there's no forgiveness of sin without the shedding of blood, basically, on there.
How does this kind of symbolizes, the Messiah or Christ?
Well, so everybody says he was our Redeemer. He's going to be our Avenger, right? So this is it fits in perfectly, I think.
He died for us.
Mm-hmm. Shed his blood, yep, to heal the land, heal the people, and then he's going to come back and avenge, right? So he's both the Redeemer and the Avenger on there. Great comment. You like it? All right. Are y'all done with 35? Any other comments, questions? Last chance. All right. Let's do 36, and then we will have wrapped up the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and then I think next week we'll start Joshua. Is that correct? Is that what we're doing? All right, but before we get to that, we've got some great intriguing stuff here. Numbers 36, again, I'm reading out of the Names of God Bible. This one, the subtitle says, The Rights of Women to Inherit Land. Ron, remind me about the question that you had earlier when we go through this. All right, it says, first one, the heads of the households whose families were descended from Gilead, son of Machir, the grandson of Manasseh, families of Joseph's descendants, came and spoke to Moses and the leaders of the other Israelites' households. They said, Sir, Yahweh commanded you to give the Israelites their land by drawing lots. Yahweh has also commanded you to give the land of our relative Zelophehad, excuse me, to his daughters. Suppose they marry men from the other tribes of Israel, their land will be taken away from that part of our ancestors and added to the land of the tribe they marry into. Then we will have lost part of our land. When the Israelites' Jubilee year comes, their land will be added to that of the tribe they marry into. Then part of the land of the ancestors' tribe will be gone. So Moses gave the Israelites a command from Yahweh. The tribe of Joseph's descendants is right. This is what Yahweh commands Zelophehad's daughters. They may marry anyone they want to, but only within a family of their ancestors' tribe. In this way, no land of the Israelites will pass from one tribe to another. Every Israelite must keep the tribal land inherited from his ancestors. A woman who inherits land in any of the tribes of Israel may marry a man from any family in her ancestors' tribe. In this way, every Israelite keeps the land inherited from his ancestors. No land may pass from one tribe to another. Each Israelite tribe must keep the land it inherits. Zelophehad's daughters did as Yahweh commanded Moses. Mahalah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah married their cousins on their father's side of the family. They married within the family of the descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, so their land stayed in the tribe of their father's family. These are the commands and rules Yahweh gave the Israelites through Moses on the plains of Moab near the Jordan River across from Jericho. Excuse me. Ron.
Well, this brings up an interesting question.
All right. I like interesting questions.
Well, we're gonna probably get into it, I don't remember exactly what book it's into, but, the Benjamites were all killed except for like 300. And they had to bring daughters from other tribes so that they would have an inheritance, and they would have wives that would, produce sons and daughters and things like that.
Right. Offspring.
And I wonder what they did in this case.
So it's one way on here, right? And what I mean by that is the reason that they're bringing this up is because when a woman marries a man, she becomes part of his family. So then he would technically, if he was from, let's say, using your Benjamin story, right? Let's say there were Benjamite women and they married people from Reuben, right? Then they would become Reuben, but they would not inherit. The Reubenites would not inherit the Benjaminites' land. This one specifically calls out, if you go back to your story, the Benjamite men could marry Reuben women, and then they would still have their Benjaminite land, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay. And so in this case, because Zelophehad died, I think that was his name, Zelophehad, died and didn't have any sons, he was going to be left out of the will, basically. So I think it was Numbers 20, somewhere around there, where this came up, and they go, you know what, you're right. If a man dies and has no sons, it's going to go to his daughters. If he has no daughters, it's going to go to his brother. There's a certain order in which it goes, and the whole reason for that is to keep this land that was promised to them in that family's name. And so the reason they got their inheritance, but and it doesn't say it, but it was probably another member of Manasseh's tribe that said, hey, wait a minute, these 5 ladies are going to get married off, and then Issachar is going to come in and take our land. And so they didn't want that to happen. So that's why this particular rule came out for these people, these daughters, because they had to marry within the Manasseh clan so that the land would go to their husband, and they would already be Manasseites on there. Does that make sense?
So if they married for another tribe, they would just lose the land?
They would lose the land.
They would leave the land?
The land would become whatever tribe they married. And so the land was not to be sent, split up into different tribes. Each one got their portion, and that was to be their inheritance forever, right? So you couldn't, if you only had a daughter, and let's say, again, we'll use this Manasseh, they're part of the Manasseh clan, and let's say their land was right in the middle of Manasseh. And now all of a sudden they marry somebody from Reuben. Well, the way that the inheritance law went, then she becomes a Reubenite because she's married a Reubenite man. So technically he would now own that land inside the Manasseh territory. And they didn't want that to happen. So if you inherited land because they were given the land, remember they said, hey, you're right, we're going to make sure that they have the land that their family deserves. And in order to keep that within Manasseh, they had to marry other Manasseh men from the tribe. So I hope that helps. Clear as mud.
But also, wouldn't that be part of her bride price, which would stay with her?
If they got divorced. But if the year of Jubilee, that's why it calls out the year of Jubilee comes here. If it goes to the year of Jubilee, then all land returns to its family, basically. It says from it to its owner most places, but to its family. So if they're married and still married at the Jubilee, and she's married a Reubenite, guess what? Now this land becomes Reubenite land. And that's why this calls out the specific detail right before we're about to go into the promised land. They're like, hey, we want to make sure that the land that's being divided up stays divided up and stays with these families. And again, it's a name, right? It's like Johnson or Smith or Boyd, right? It has to stay within that family. And if I have a daughter and she marries I don't know the name, Johnson, then all of a sudden she would lose out on all the Boyd inheritance. She would now be entitled to the Johnson inheritance. Now, to Linda's point, if they got divorced, this bride price that I set aside for her would be hers. So when she comes back and becomes a Boyd again, she's not left out in the cold. Yes.
Also, nowadays, lands are under a name, like Montgomery, this plot of land.
Uh-huh.
What it is it's a law firm that.
Say that again? Yeah.
But nevertheless, this, so that name will not be blotted out. So it'll be a land with this name, And so, if the daughter marries in this land, that name will kind of continue on, and more so.
Yeah. No, actually, I mean, that, like you've got that Israel. Well, the land is called Israel today, right? Because they were Israelites. So you're 100% correct. And they were very good at naming lands after themselves so that their title name, the family name would never die out. It would always be attached to that land on there. Yeah, no, great comment.
And continue to grow family, in honor of their father.
Yeah, exactly. Now, my question that I've had on this, since we're about to go into the promised land, is there had to have been at some point when you would just have too many people. Let's say they never messed up, right? And they did exactly what they were supposed to do. At some point, you would have so many people, you would have to expand your lands. Now, how would you do that? He hasn't revealed that to me yet, so I don't know. But that's just a question that I had, right? If frogs had wings, right? If they didn't mess up, at some point, like today, I think they would just be too numerous for that. So what would happen? I'm sure God had another plan in place if that happened. But I just thought that was interesting. All right. Any other comments, questions? Johnny, last chance for numbers.
This pretty much, this land, the name, and all this, it's pretty. If we take it spiritually, it's coming in connection with God in this promised land. God is there and everything.
This is spiritual, 100% spiritual, because it's to your point, God's there.
Yeah, it's there.
No.
And you gotta follow Him spiritually, to live well. And all this.
And how do you do that? How do you follow His physical laws? I think is the way that you would do that. Exactly.
So, that's a big help, that was given, so, and learn from it, and we still have it today, so.
Yeah. Still have the shot, right? Well, good deal. Well, if you got another comment, I'll let you go. And I'm going to wrap it up because I got Nachos calling me.
And who were the fathers? How far back does it go? From Manasseh, it goes to Machar, Gilead, Haphar, and then the loss of Bahad,
Right?
and then the $6.
It's so, and you got to think, this is not the actual grandson of Manasseh, right? Because Manasseh they went into Egypt, or was in Egypt, and this is 400 years later, 430 years later. He's not that's basically 10 generations in Egypt. So this is not the actual grandson, but he's just from that lineage. And so they kept that family name going, to your earlier point, kept the family names going. And so that once you're a Manassite, you were always a Manassite. And so you had your father, and then it just went back to Manasseh. You know, you would only go to your father on there, and it wouldn't necessarily go to your actual grandfather, great-grandfather, all the way back to Manasseh. Yeah. Well, thank y'all very much. I think it was a great Bible study. I appreciate y'all going through that with me. I always learn a tremendous amount doing this with you guys. So next week we will start in Joshua. Excuse me. Well, let's just try chapter 1. How about? Ron, you going to have a message? All right. So Ron says you have a message, so he'll give me a little bit of a break on my talking. Hopefully I'll be done with the coughs. For our final song today, if everybody would please turn to page number 143 and stand. We're going to sing for even from my youth, O God, and then we'll get Ron to do our closing prayer today. Page number 143. For even from my youth, O God, by thee have I been taught, and hitherto I have declared the wonders thou hast wrought. And now, O God, forsake me not when I am old and gray, till I proclaim thy wondrous deeds to this and every age. Thy perfect righteousness, O God, the heavens I exceed. O God, it is like thee who has performed such mighty deeds. Thou who has shown me trials sore and great adversity, will quicken me again and bring me from the depths of earth. My greatness and my power will increase when far extend against all grief on every side. To me will comfort send, and I will also praise thy truth, O God, with psaltery. Thou Holy One of Israel, I'll sing to thee. Thank you. And now for our closing prayer today, Mr. Ron Harmon. Don't forget your new calendar.
Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this Sabbath day. We thank you for this Bible study and the knowledge that it's brought us. Thank you, Father, for enlightening us in your will and in your ways, your Sabbath day. And Father, just bless us and watch over us as we go about this coming week and as we travel and whatever functions we do, just put your angels around us and beside us and protect us and guide us and strengthen us. And thank you for the food we're about to have, Father. Thank you for its blessing upon our bodies. Thank you for all these things, and we ask all these things in your Son's name. Let thy will be done.